You know the feeling. The person who is always just out of reach. We all know a version of the story. A chance meeting on a Manhattan street, a woman named Carrie Bradshaw, and the man she would come to call Mr. Big. For years, he was a ghost in her phone, a question mark at the end of every conversation. He gave her just enough to keep her hoping, and just enough distance to keep her guessing. It's a puzzle you think you can solve. A man whose real name, John James Preston, was kept just out of sight, like everything else that truly mattered. So you lean in closer. Why are we so drawn to people we know we can never truly have? That chase, you think, is about them. About their walls, their distance, their past. By the end, it will look different to you. You'll see who was really running. The unfinished room. Have you ever felt more like an architect than a partner? You meet them, and there's an immediate pull that feels different. It isn't just simple attraction. It's the pull of a good mystery. There are deliberate gaps in their story. A past that's kept blurred around the edges. A future they won't bring into focus. It's like walking through a house and discovering one beautiful, unfurnished room. The floors are worn just right. The afternoon light slices across the wall in a perfect golden square. And it is completely, invitingly empty. But you don't register it as empty. You see it as potential, a blank canvas. And almost without your own permission, your mind begins to decorate. You start picking out the furniture. You picture a deep, comfortable sofa for watching old movies, a small wooden table near the window where you'd leave a note for them before work. You can almost smell the coffee you'd make, just the way they like it. You are designing an entire life inside those four quiet walls. You're filling the silence with conversations you haven't had yet, ignoring the part of you that sounds like Samantha Jones, warning that you can't furnish a person. You are building a home inside someone who has only offered you a space. You furnish it with a future they never promised. You populate it with a version of them they may never become. The person whose name you can't quite say you know. Not really. But here's the turn. You're the only one decorating. You're the only one who even knows the design plan. They aren't there with you, holding the other end of the tape measure. They just own the property. And so you pour all this energy into a place they only visit. A masterpiece of a life that exists only in your head. It has everything you ever wanted. It feels perfect. So why are you still standing on the outside? Why, when you try to finally turn the key and move in, do you keep walking straight into a wall you can't even see? The invisible wall. But then comes the moment you feel it, the shift. Things have been going well, maybe for a few weeks, maybe longer. The conversations feel easy, winding late into the night. You start to believe this is different. You start to feel safe. So you offer something real, a story from your past that still has sharp edges, a fear about the future that keeps you awake sometimes. You say it out loud, and the words hang in the space between you. It costs you something to say it. And you wait, holding your breath just a little, for them to meet you there. And they don't. There's no fight. There's no storm. There's just a quiet change in the air, a polite, fixed smile, a sudden fascination with the condensation on their glass. Their phone lights up on the table and their eyes drift to it, pulled away. A quick glance, but it's enough. The subject is changed. They ask if you saw that new show. They mention they have an early morning. It feels like a door slamming in your face, a personal, pointed rejection of the one thing you chose to share. But there was no door. A door can be opened. A door implies a passageway. You just walked into a wall. It was always there, invisible, silent, stretching between you from the very first day. You just never felt it before. Because you never tried to step through. The boundary was set long before you arrived. The blueprint for it drawn by a name you don't know, from a time you'll never see. It's why a man like Mr. Big could spend years in a loop, only to suddenly marry Natasha. You remember her. The character played by Bridget Moynihan, who arrived just in time for the ceremony. It wasn't that she was different. She just fit a role he was suddenly ready to cast. It wasn't about your story. It was about their structure. And so you're left in the silence, the echo of your own vulnerability still in the air. You see the wall now. You know where it is, but what is it made of? And if they won't meet you here, with words, how do they show you who they really are? The language of absence. And then the silence begins. The phone on your nightstand is just a block of dark glass. Last night, it was alive, full of plans and inside jokes and that feeling of finally being seen. This morning, it's a memorial to a conversation that's over. You start to notice the rhythm. It's not random. After a perfect evening, they go quiet for 3 days. After a vulnerable talk where you thought you finally broke through, they become a ghost, a scene receipt with no reply. This pattern can burn down whole lives. You've seen the story play out. A man like Big who marries someone else, Natasha, because it feels safer than committing to the one he truly wants. Then he starts an affair with that person, with Carrie. And it all implodes. His wife comes home, discovers everything, and in the chaos, she falls and breaks her tooth. The marriage ends in divorce, all because the closeness he built was the very thing he had to sabotage. And that story echoes in the much quieter drama of your own life. You tell yourself stories to fill the space. It's a big project at work. It's family stress. It's anything but the one thought you can't quite let yourself have. The thought that the closeness was the cause. So you learn to wait. You become an expert in managing their retreats. You learn not to text twice. You learn to make your own plans, but keep them flexible, always flexible, just in case they decide to reappear. You tell yourself you're giving them space, but you're not managing their pattern. You're just learning to live with less. You are rationing your own need for connection, hoping that if you ask for little enough, they will eventually decide you are worth more. It's a strange kind of physics you're discovering. An invisible law where the warmth you create is the very thing that triggers the cold. And as you get better at this waiting game, you focus so hard on their next move, on deciphering their silence. But all this focus on them, it stops you from asking a different question. It's not, when will they come back? It's, why am I still here waiting? The role you were cast in. You learned to read the silences, to find meaning in the spaces between their words. But eventually, you have to ask what all that work was for. Think back to those conversations, the ones that always seemed to start after midnight, with just the blue light of your phone on the nightstand. It was always their story, wasn't it? A monologue about their demons, their damage, the ghost of some past relationship that taught them to never get too close. And you were the perfect listener. You nodded, you understood, you offered comfort. You thought you were building something between you, one late-night confession at a time. A bridge, maybe, strong enough to finally let them cross over to you. But you weren't building a bridge. You were just the person standing on the shore, telling them it was okay they never learned how to swim. You made the dry land feel safe. Your assigned role was never partner, not even close. You were the audience, the unpaid therapist, the quiet, validating witness to their very important, very personal drama. They needed someone to watch them struggle, to confirm for themselves that they were deep and complicated and tragically incapable of love. It's an old story. So old, it became a famous one. Think of the character they called Mr. Big. The writer, Candace Bushnell, didn't just invent him out of thin air. She based him on a real person, a publisher named Ron Galati, a man she called a big man on campus. The actor, Chris Noth, gave that character a face, but you were the one who gave your version of him a purpose. You became the audience for that same performance, where the leading man is always emotionally unavailable, always just out of reach. You had a name in their script. You just never knew what it was. But the real danger isn't discovering the role you were playing. It's what happens the exact moment you decide to walk out of the theater. The last-minute rescue. Now, a quiet settles in, a real quiet. For the first time in months, maybe years, you've stopped checking your phone. You've stopped waiting for a reply that was never going to be what you needed. The low-grade hum of anxiety that lived behind your eyes, it's gone. You can hear the city outside your window. You can feel the texture of the sheets. The silence is finally yours. And then it happens. That screen on your nightstand flashes to life. 2 a.m. It's them. A call out of the blue. Or a wall of text that seems to have poured out in one desperate stream. They've made a terrible mistake. They see everything clearly now. They say all the words you starved to hear for so long. Every sentence is a perfectly aimed arrow, hitting the exact center of your old hope. It feels like the final scene of a movie, the part where the music swells and the camera pushes in. It feels like a victory. Proof that you were right all along, that the connection was real. But this is not a change of heart. It is a panic response. Think about the timing. This grand gesture, this sudden clarity, it didn't arrive when you were crying in your car after they canceled again. It didn't happen when they decided to move to Napa Valley and almost didn't tell you. It didn't happen in any of the 1,000 small moments you just needed them to show up. It's happening now, only now, because you finally walked off the stage. They aren't running toward you. They're running away from the echo of an empty apartment. Your absence created a vacuum, a sudden silence where your attention used to be. They are simply trying to stop the ringing in their ears. So they offer you the one thing they know you can't resist, the role you always wanted to play. And the question is no longer if they mean it. The question is, what does it cost you to sit back down and watch the show again? Setting down the weight. But what happens when the apology finally arrives? When the grand last-minute rescue you always dreamed of is suddenly happening, right on your front porch. There they are, saying all the words you waited years to hear. They talk about change. They say they finally understand how much they hurt you. It's a beautiful performance, desperate and maybe even sincere. And as you listen, you realize something inside you isn't leaping. It's not angry. It's just still. You see the script. You've read this page 1,000 times. You just never saw it from the audience before. And you choose not to applaud. The old you would have argued, would have pulled out a list of damages, demanding proof that this time is different. Not anymore. You don't explain, you don't justify. You just let their words hang in the air for a moment. And then you hand their story back to them. Their healing, their potential, that unfinished room inside them you spent so long trying to furnish. You recognize it was never yours to decorate. So you just say no, quietly, firmly. You close the door, and the silence that follows is different. It's not the anxious, buzzing silence of waiting for a text back. It's the peaceful silence of an open road at dawn. It's the feeling of finally setting down a weight you carried for so long you forgot it was even there. Its absence leaves an echo, a space shaped exactly like the struggle. So, who are you without the fight? And so we circle back to that feeling, the person who is always just out of reach, the one you know you can never truly have. Perhaps the poll was never about them at all. It was about the story you could write in their absence. A perfect character with no flaws, because you never got close enough to see them. But that story becomes a quiet prison. The only way out is to see the person behind the idea, to finally let the fantasy fade and learn their real name. What story have you been writing?